It's 2015. YouTube is at the forefront of the video streaming race, emerging as one of the most preferred platforms and generating a whopping $5.5 billion in ad revenue.
YouTube has over 1 billion users. If you look at the next generation, they are completely changing the way that they watch TV.
But a major threat looms. See, platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime and Hulu are experiencing exponential growth and will soon outrun YouTube via subscription revenues. But YouTube wasn't going to back down.
YouTube is betting some users will pay to play its videos and music ad-free.
YouTube Red, a new monthly $10 subscription service.
They launched their own subscription service called YouTube Red, offering original content, ad-free experience and downloadable videos. Unfortunately for YouTube, it was a catastrophic failure. Heck, even YouTube's chief of original content admitted in 2019 that Netflix was too far ahead. But YouTube hadn't backed down just yet. Over the next few years, they closely listened to their users, evolved their services to market demands, and achieved solid acquisition and retention. They call this new variant
YouTube Premium.
After a decade of launch, YouTube Premium has grown into an absolute behemoth with a massive 100 million subscribers. And although YouTube does not declare premium standalone earnings, it did say that it earned $15 billion from subscriptions like Premium and Music in FY23, and we believe that Premium is still a big cash cow. In this video, we'll be breaking down Premium's product and marketing strategy that helped it grow into the giant it is today. Let's perspectify the shit out of this.
So, a subscription business can be essentially broken down into how well you've cracked retention, which is the number of users who are staying and subscribing to you month on month. And then comes acquisition, which is the ability for you to essentially get users onto your platform. The funny thing about a subscription business is that you always need to first solve retention and then go to acquisition. You can't go around it the other way around, because otherwise it will just lead to a leaky bucket. Now, let us talk about the retention strategy of YouTube Premium. So, in order to really crack the retention of YouTube Premium, what YouTube did was employ a strategy known as bundling. Now, this is a very common strategy where you're essentially combining multiple products into one single service and giving that to the user. Most notably, in case of YouTube Premium, what we see is that they're combining YouTube Premium with YouTube Music. Now, what's interesting about this strategy is that with just one subscription, you're able to attract consumers and you're able to expand your target market significantly. So let's take the example of YouTube Music and YouTube Premium. So the biggest competitor to YouTube Music is actually Spotify. So the way it made complete sense for the end consumer is that instead of actually paying Spotify approximately 2,000 rupees annually to Spotify for just listening to music, you can pay YouTube just 1,800, which is a cost saving of approximately 800 to 900 rupees, and get the same, almost the same level of service. Now, some people might actually come at us and say that Spotify has better recommendation, and that's completely true. But if you think about it from a whole ecosystem perspective, you're essentially paying less money to get almost 80% of Spotify, plus you're getting a huge add-on of no ads on YouTube. Now, one can argue that bundling may not always work, and that was actually the case of YouTube Premium initially when it was known as YouTube Red. One of the things in the bundle was actually you get access to YouTube content of library, which included things like Cobra Kai and a bunch of other YouTube original videos. And you could only access that once you paid a subscription fee to YouTube. But later on, the realization for YouTube is that they are a great tech platform and people are not coming to YouTube to watch well-produced documentaries or movies or TV serials like they are on Netflix. They're coming to YouTube to watch their favorite creators. And the reason why people were actually buying YouTube Red was not because they wanted to see those YouTube originals, but rather they wanted to get an ad-free experience. Which is why before actually launching YouTube Premium and scaling it up to countries like Australia, Canada, etc., they essentially just killed off their YouTube Originals business and just focused on giving an ad-free experience to the customer. Now, what happened with this was that the marketing message of YouTube Premium and why you should purchase it became very simple. To this date, the way YouTube actually markets YouTube Premium is by simply saying it in one line that if you want an ad-free experience, get YouTube Premium. And YouTube Music then becomes an additional add-on which essentially just sweetens the pot. So the insight that we can actually get from this, and if you're building a subscription business, is that you really need to use the spray and pray approach. What that essentially means is that you can't really have just one service or two services. It always has to be a combination of services which essentially makes the experience or the perceived value of that product much more than the cost that you are paying for buying that subscription, right? And for that to happen, you need to constantly experiment with your users, what is resonating with them. So, and why are they purchasing that particular subscription, to make the value proposition and the marketing message around that super simple. So that is the end of the retention segment. YouTube actually took 2 years to actually launch it in different countries. So for 2 years, they were just in the US with YouTube Premium. And then they slowly started rolling out to Canada, New Zealand, and now they're in 120 countries with almost 100 million users. So I think, Dhruv, why don't you talk about how they essentially managed to get to such a large scale in such a short period of time?
So, Rakshit, the most obvious strategy that YouTube Premium employed to build a massive acquisition database was basically free trials.
Yeah.
Right now, we often dismiss free trials as a very obvious strategy, but if you really think about it, right, in our previous episode on Aether, right, the whole case study of Aether, we learned that anyone who tried the Aether scooter, who actually test drove the Aether scooter, had like a 70% chance of actually becoming a buyer. So 7 out of 10 people who were test driving Aether were actually becoming buyers, right? And this boils down to something called as the endowment effect. I don't know if you're aware of what this effect basically implies, but the agenda here is that when there is a perceived familiarity with the product, or there's a perceived ownership of a product, right, there is less willingness of that person to give that product away.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say tomorrow, like today, I give you that, hey, try YouTube Premium for free for the next 3 months. Right. And you're like, perfect, let me, start using it. And for this entire 3 months of tenure, right, your brain starts adapting to this familiarity with the product, gets used to it, and you are unable to then go back to your previous behavior of getting used to ads, or even watching YouTube without actually switching off your phone. So it's a very smart tactic, and free trials by itself employs a very big psychological bias, which is called the endowment effect.
Yeah, exactly. And this actually relates back to retention, right? YouTube Premium, I'm sure, has like amazing retention, because once you've tried out that product for 3 months, there is no going back. And that's what they realized, that this is such a sticky product that if you just use it for a couple of months, there is no turning back, and you can't go back to the old behavior.
Correct. Absolutely right. So obviously they had cracked this strategy, and this was the bedrock on which they built out their entire acquisition funnel after that, right? Because interestingly, right, if you think about a brand like YouTube Premium, you can't like just go very small scale, right? You can't be like, hey, I'll run a couple of meta ads and build, top of the funnel for YouTube, right? Because we're talking about a subscriber base of, almost 100 million people, right? If you want to reach so many people across so many countries, you have to go very broad, right? So you have to try tactics like probably billboard marketing, or like basically big brand advertising, right? And I think what they cracked very smartly here, right? So let me get to it just in a minute, but let me ask you something, Rakshit. Do you know which is the largest smartphone seller in India? And I'll also explain why I'm asking you this question.
I'm guessing Samsung.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I thought Samsung or probably even Apple until a year back, because a lot of people have been switching to iPhones recently. But the interesting thing, it's actually Xiaomi, right? Xiaomi is actually the largest seller of smartphones in India at this point in time, which is not something that we instantly, it doesn't instantly hit us, right? Now, the reason why I asked you that question is because the folks over at YouTube Premium actually cracked a partnership with Xiaomi, and basically what they're saying is with all their phones for almost, I think, a year or two. I'm not aware if this is still going on, but they were actually offering free trials of YouTube Premium for like 3 months across all Xiaomi smartphones, right? So in one shot, you are trying to capture a big share of the Indian market without having to struggle with small advertising experiments all over the all over the India, all over India, right? So it was something that I was like, wow, that's so smart, right? You just get in, swing in, get the biggest smartphone seller, and you partner with them directly, right? And that's how you sort of enter the market. And obviously, Rakshit, this is something that I had to really dig deep into, because there is no news on how YouTube Premium built up its, sort of partnership base. But interestingly, they've also done the exact same thing across all other countries. And, even for example, if we talk about Turkey, YouTube Premium partnered with Vodafone and Turkcell in Turkey, which is one of the biggest telcos in Turkey, right? And in one of their, recent reports, YouTube by themselves said that they understand the power of collaboration, and they worked with players like SoftBank, Vodafone in Europe, LG U Plus in Korea, and a lot of other, and even Google one for that matter, to offer this service, right? So I think it's extremely interesting that they work with so many diverse players, like the biggest telecom companies across across the world, and actually enter the market through those means. And I think they even said themselves that's been the one of the most critical aspects of building like 100 million subscriber base. And at this point in time, we can also argue that YouTube Premium could probably do it, but like, what about businessmen like you and me, right? We own like even like much smaller scale businesses, right? How can they do something like this, right? But here's why I'll debate you on probably this point, right? That smaller businesses can't think of such such practices, right? Because if you've been a follower of Perspectify of the last couple of videos, we have seen Mokobara and Indigo partnership, which was like a much smaller scale partnership closer to home, right? We've also seen a Zepto partnering with the likes of GoZero in one of our previous videos, where we explored the ice cream market, right? So even closer to home, there are so many examples of businesses doing this extremely well, and the most obvious benefit is the cross marketing of audiences that comes in, right, where you get some of the audiences of the other player and vice versa. So I think it's an excellent practice to establish sort of mind recall for the consumers.
Another aspect that we should talk about for acquisition is that YouTube has an MAU, which is monthly active users, of approximately 2.5 billion. What that essentially, so even if 0.5 to 1% of the users can actually convert to YouTube Premium, that is an additional you are adding 20 to 30 million subscribers month over month, right? And the reason why it is a very important strategy and something that you can build for your businesses is because once you have a highly sticky product which people are using, they would essentially come and you can essentially cross-sell or upsell them with your subscription product. This is what Zepto has done with Zepto Pass, Swiggy has done with Swiggy One, where you have a high repeat usage product which people actually use and love. And in order for the experience to become elevated, they're okay or willing to pay a certain premium every single month.
And with that, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode. If you've liked the episode so far, make sure you drop a subscribe. We also run a Perspectify community, which is a WhatsApp community where we host a lot of debates and discussions on marketing, product, and growth. Alongside that, we're also offering mentoring services for these industries. So all these links will be down in the description box. And take care. Goodbye.
Yeah, we're on a quest, unlocking strategies, find out what's the best. difference, changing the tide.